This is the voice of one EJ Snyder of Bootleg Football, kind enough to join us from out in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, does a great job of breaking down the entire NFL draft, and we're excited to recap it with him here on this Thursday edition of Helmets and Heels. Hi, EJ. How are you?
I'm good. I'm recovering. How are you, ladies?
Hey, feeling the same way. I feel like Taylor and I have described it to every person who's come into our office as I'm swimming back to the surface after being underwater. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm starting to drink coffee for fun again and pleasure instead of necessity. So, it's a whole new world.
Exactly. I took a nap the other day and I fell asleep at 7:30. I was like, this is very strange. We played the Warren Sapp sound because we didn't get to in our opening segment, and a couple of the Heeligans had asked, we had requested we play it again after playing it last week. And so I think it's a good place to start, EJ. For you, the trade up for Travis Hunter. This idea of we have bombarded our audience, and I feel like you guys have too. I mean, I feel like it's everybody. With this sunshine and rainbows, he is a can't-miss prospect. Please confirm we're not just blowing smoke. This is someone who would have rated equally as high comparatively to other draft classes in the last 5 years and in the next 5 years to come.
I don't know about the next 5 years. That's a long time. But for this class, and certainly the classes, around in terms of last year and next year, yeah, this is a talent that could have been considered at the overall number one pick for a bunch of reasons, not just one reason, which is what makes him crazy. But no, you're not just blowing smoke. This is an athlete that can turn the favor for your football team on either side of the ball, and that's rare enough. And when you watch him as a cornerback, which is where I started with him, you see all the gifts. And so I started off saying, hey, he's got to be a corner in the league. If we're going to split, if we're going to do load management for him in the NFL, which is probably going to be necessary at the next level, he should be a corner. And then about a month later, I was finishing up wide receivers, and I was like, yep, I should study him differently as a wide receiver. I know he's good there, but I should see where I need to slot him into this class. I got done watching him, and I slotted him as the number one wide receiver in this class. And I was like, well, maybe he can play wide receiver and come in on package as a cornerback. So it's a very rare skill set, and you're not blowing smoke. This is an athlete that is deserved of consideration for the top overall pick. He goes second, but I think that's completely legit and in line with his talent.
EJ, when it comes to the trade package that happened between the Jaguars and Browns, because that's going to be another conversation, and we've talked about it on this show, that you won't really know that full value of the trade for several years because the Browns have picks next year with it, and then also you kind of have to see the talent come out of that. But what was your initial reaction of what the Jags gave up and what the Browns gave up?
Well, it was a heck of a move by your new GM. He wanted to put his stamp on his first draft, and boy, did he. It was not boring, that's for sure. And the bottom line with any draft pick and any trade, so any sum total of draft picks, is if Travis Hunter is the player that Jacksonville thinks he is on either side of the ball, whatever they think he is, nobody's going to care about the draft picks. For all the hits, and you can go back as long as you want, there is nobody that's really successful in the NFL and people are grousing about, yeah, well, they still shouldn't have given up anything for. If you win, that's it. Nobody cares about the picks. Overall, I don't think it's that bad given the talent. We'll see. Now, anything can happen. We know that. I heard you guys talking about injuries in the lead up and, Jordan Travis and all of that. There is no certainty in the NFL, but if he comes out, Travis comes out and plays well, nobody's going to come back to the compensation ever.
I totally agree, EJ. When it comes to pairing Travis Hunter with Brian Thomas Jr., it feels like, honestly, the Jags almost have two wide receiver ones.
I think you could go to either side, and it really depends on the play call, and you've got a creative head coach who can use that advantage. Some coaches are a little bit more rigid. Liam Cohen can come in and say, hey, this is the hot hand, or, look, they've got an injury at corner, so we're going to force it to the other side without swapping sides for receivers. Some receivers don't like to do that. He's going to be able to use Travis all over the field because of that versatility, not only, opposite sides of the field on offense, but opposite sides of the ball on the field. Tremendous amount of flexibility, and Travis is used to playing sort of all over and both ways. It's going to give them a creative advantage that lets them go, series to series, down to down, week to week, and say, we can push it to either side of the field because we think we've got an advantage over whoever you're playing at corner because you can't cover them both. You probably, outside of a few teams like Denver, don't have two cornerback ones, and we have two, like you said, whatever you want to call them, 1A, 1B. We have two options we can go to with sort of equal confidence in just about any situation on the other side of the field. We can just flip-flop that advantage for us, and really have you try and prepare for that during the week is even harder. Time is really limited in the NFL, and if you come in not knowing which threat you're supposed to be focusing on, it just makes it tougher for opponents.
EJ Snyder of Bootleg Football is our guest on the Checkmate Coatings hotline. Check him out on X at FootballEJ. Of course, you joined us just a few weeks ago, EJ, because you had not given us your cornerback and safety rankings, and we went through the list of defensive backs. I don't believe Caleb Ransaw or Rayuan Lane, how we determined it's pronounced, Rayuan Lane. I don't think either of those two were on your final top 10 list for the safety or defensive back positions. But here they are. Jacksonville Jaguars, certainly one a day 2 selection, the other a day 3. What do you make of the Jaguars' decision to fortify a room that many thought, oh, you already have 5 or 6 guys there, but their decision that we can improve both the secondary as a whole, but specifically the safety room?
Yeah, I think it's them following their board. If I had to sort of look down, we all get to be like, forensic detectives here on the draft boards, especially with new GMs. They like to do this and say, what do they value? What do they prioritize? Why did they make this decision when they made it? Why did they choose to trade up, trade down, and start to sort of build a book on a GM? And as you look at this, it feels like as they got to that 3rd round pick, again, having given up the 2nd, Caleb Ransaw was probably the top guy on their board. And they said, look, we've got enough holes. We're not a team that's 1 or 2 players away. We're going to follow our board. We're going to be religious about that. I think it's a solid pick. Caleb Ransaw is an interesting defensive back because, yeah, he is a safety, but he definitely played down near the line quite a bit. So you can consider him a slot or a star or even a nickel corner at some juncture. He's fluid. He's not particularly sharp, and there's lots of different ways to win as a defensive back. Some are very sudden, super quick feet. Ransaw is a little bit more rounded, but he's got really good eyes, and that gets him to the right place. Doesn't mind hitting at all. He's got decent size. So I think it's just them looking at the Ransaw pick specifically as the 3rd rounder and saying, hey, this is the best value we can get for our draft money right here. We're going to add him because, down the road we think this is going to help. And again, we're fortifying ourselves from injury and everything else that they've seen in the secondary in the last couple of years. When you get farther down and you get into the 6th round, a guy like Rayuan Lane, you're really looking for competitors and guys you want to put on your team who are going to make their mark as special teamers immediately. And he has that. He ran a pretty good time for somebody coming out of Navy. He's in the mid 4.5s. There's lots of defensive backs in the National Football League that run 4.5s, but he's more of a straight line guy, and that lines up more of a special teams. He's not jitterbug laterally, but again, absolutely, first-class human being from everything I've heard from folks that talk to him throughout the pre-draft process. Plays extremely hard, certainly knows a lot about time management coming from the service academies. You have to have that, and he's going to hit, and that pretty much profiles perfectly as a special teamer. So the value, again, it's probably in line with their board, somebody they talked to that they really liked, that they wanted to add to their room, not only as a person but a player, and it fits in with the needs late in the draft.
EJ, I want to talk a little bit about the linebacker room in general because there's some interesting things going on there. We know Foye is Foye. They just announced that they are not going to do the 5th-year option for Devin Lloyd. I personally have not ever really been the biggest Chad Muma fan. Ventrell, we saw flashes of this last year, and then they go and they add both Jack Kiser and Jalen McLeod in this draft for this year. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on both Kiser and McLeod and then how that linebacker room could possibly shake out.
Yeah, it is a fascinating question because Jacksonville loaded up on linebackers a couple of years ago when they did Lloyd and Muma. And I thought, well, they're set. I like both those players. Again, they've had not the most successful NFL careers so far. I think the Devin Lloyd thing really comes down to money. If you're going to pick up that 5th-year option, he becomes one of the higher-paid linebackers, and you're going to have to just pay that based on the scale. They don't necessarily think it's worth it, and that's okay. I understand that. But the selections this year, Kiser and McLeod, I almost would have flipped them. I think Jack Kiser is incredibly solid. I said this on our draft live stream that he's assignment sound. He's a guy that you can put out there and you know that he's going to be in the right place at the right time. Is he a sort of table turner or difference maker? I don't see him that way. I see him as more of a steady Sort of in the middle linebacker. Like Jack Kiser was one of the most in the middle guys that I scouted this entire draft process. There was not a lot of bad. There was not a lot of great. But he's very steady, and some coaches want that. And then you get down to the next one, Jalen McLeod, the edge from Auburn, and I think he's really interesting because one of the most high-profile players in the draft was Jalen Walker, and it was the question of, hey, is he an inside linebacker? Is he an outside linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Jalen McLeod's very similar size. He's not as explosive, which is why he went in the sixth and not up in the first. But he is incredibly patient, and, man, is he a technically refined football player. It looks like he's been at football camp since he was like 6 years old. Great eyes, great feet position. So it doesn't matter to me as much that he's not as fast or explosive because he doesn't get himself in the wrong space. He uses his eyes to get himself in the right space. And when he gets there, he comes correct. He's a form tackler. You don't see people losing him either on fakes of their own or like ball fakes with his eyes going to the wrong place in the backfield. Just an incredibly solid, repped football player who looks like he's been doing this job for a very long time. So I think he's really interesting and feels like a great value way down in the sixth.
Well, they completely overhauled the offensive line between free agency, certainly in the draft, EJ. Let's talk about the tallest and heaviest player the Jaguars drafted in offensive lineman Wyatt Milum, coming in at 6'6" and 317 pounds. Obviously, we know the stat that he hasn't allowed a sack since 2022, but what do you like about Milum?
I'm really interested to see where they play him. I had him as one of my top guards on the board. He played tackle at West Virginia, of course. It really feels like he struggles with speed around the corner, so you're going to mask a lot of that if you go into guard. And he has so much power and torque in his upper body and his forearms and his hands. Once he gets his grip on you, that rep is pretty much over. So if he can make contact in a good, solid way, you're not really going to get by him. Drops the anchor really well, never takes him more than about a step and a half, or hop and a half to set against bull rushers. So I thought he was one of the best guards, power guards available in this draft. Really interested to see where they deploy him. But, yeah, like you said, so steady, doesn't give up pressure, has good eyes, and I think is really built to succeed at guard in the NFL. I don't think that's a backhanded compliment of, oh, he can't play tackle, he must be a guard. I think he's going to be a really good guard if they put him there. If they put him at tackle, I'll be really interested to see how much help they have to give him and, what their coaching points are on basically buttoning up that outside shoulder against NFL speed, which is a different level than he faced in college.
Yeah, and certainly as both Jordan Reed of ESPN predicted, and we did on this show as well, EJ, this idea of the Jaguars targeting someone early day 3 or on day 2, as they ended up doing with Wyatt Milum out of West Virginia, who offered that guard tackle versatility as they feel through this first year of Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, the pieces they inherited from the Trent Baalke, Doug Peterson administration.
By the way, I would bet left guard as of now. Is that what you bet?
Yep. Yeah. Left guard is where I fully anticipate he's the successor to Ezra Cleveland, or he pushes him so much in training camp that potentially Ezra becomes a potential trade piece. As we span the Jaguars 2025 draft class with you, we've saved the best for last, EJ. I'm curious your take on the 2 running backs, because I know a lot of folks at the national level like yourself were pretty high on Bhayshul Tuten.
Yeah, I actually like both these running backs, but I'll talk about Bhayshul Tuten first because he's the most explosive. And literally the only knock I have against Bhayshul Tuten, and I know medicals were certainly a factor, but we'll talk about that in a second, is fumbles. And sometimes when you see guys move up a level in competition, which he did in college when he got up to Virginia Tech, his fumbles really exploded. He had 9 in the last 2 years he was there, and that's just not acceptable at the NFL level. You can't put the ball on the ground. So he's got to solve the fumbling problem. A lot of people cited the injury, but I didn't worry as much about the injury because even when he came back from a knee injury and was still wearing a brace and was very clearly like running on one leg in terms of power, he was still outrunning guys in his conference. And there's a lot of fast guys in his conference. So once he took the brace off, it was over. He is one of the most explosive backs in this entire draft. I love his vision. He's certainly more of an outside zone guy, but he's going to give you that big play potential from anywhere on the field now that he's even a year further removed from the injury. I'm not worried about that at all, but he's got to hold on to the football. And then way down at the end of the draft, 7th round, they get LeQuint Allen out of Syracuse. I'm a big Orange fan. You know this, me. I grew up in upstate New York, and LeQuint is one of my favorite backs in this draft because he is one of the best pass receiving backs in this entire draft. He's also a dog in pass protection, and that's going to get him on the field earlier. But he had 600-plus yards receiving at Syracuse last year in that high-powered offense. He's also a very good rushing threat, a little more upright. Doesn't have quite the burst. He's taller, certainly, than Bhayshul is. But I like him as well and think he's a real value to get a guy of his caliber that far down the board. Again, you're usually picking through special teamers, project guys, height, weight, speed guys. LeQuint Allen is a polished football player, and he can contribute right now. I don't know where he's going to sort out in that depth chart. Kind of depends on who the Jaguars keep and who they promote, but he's going to be a valuable piece down the road for basically zero draft capital.
So are you telling me that you wouldn't have traded a third-round pick to go get Woody Marks as your premier pass-catching running back like another team in the AFC South did? Because guess what? We have LeQuint Allen here in Duval County.
Yeah, I actually like LeQuint Allen better than Woody Marks, and I know that's going to catch me a lot of ire from other folks. I had them very close on my board, but if I had to pick one coming down and pass-catching was the thing that I really wanted, I would have gone with LeQuint Allen because he is a better pass protector than Woody Marks.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.